So good evening, everyone. Today is May 15th, and to the City of Springfield Special License Commission hearing. I think that's it. License Commission meeting.
And welcome to you too.
So today on the agenda, we have, like I mentioned, a special meeting for the Our Lady of Mount Carmel Society, Inc., DBA Our Lady of Mount Carmel Society, located at 13-15 Winthrop Street, Francis B. Magnoli.
Magagnoli.
Manager of record, suspension of liquor license, manager of record not on site. So Attorney Bonavita.
Sure. I've had contact with both. I'm going to just call them the new group, the old group, only for discussion purposes. The new group, their attorney, Judy Cross, had another meeting tonight. She was not able, previously scheduled. She was not able to make it. Mr. Sarcosta was not able to make it. But I will say he has no objection to the suspension at this time.
Excuse me, just a minute. No, so the new group,
Yes.
Mr. Sarcosta, who is he the proposed president?
Yes.
Okay, and he doesn't have an objection to the suspension.
Right.
Okay.
If I can explain it, yeah.
Yep.
And the and his attorney confirmed that with me yesterday.
Okay.
So the other I'm going to call them the old group, just for a better terminology. I mean,
right.
I'm sure if I thought long enough, I come up with a better term. But for the old group, Mr. Rodier was made aware of the meeting tonight, so he may be on. I'm not certain. I've had discussions with both. I will tell you, I talked to Mr. Rodier several times. Obviously, he didn't object to the suspension to me either. In his situation, the manager, obviously we find ourselves, or the commission does, you find yourself in a situation where there is no manager of record that's on site at this time. Mr. Magnoli, he's very ill in the hospital. And on the other hand, Mr. Sarcosta's group, because they're both Mount Carmel groups, Mr. Sarcosta's group, they have filed an application. There is an application. There are a couple things that had to be redone. One was they hand wrote the query request, and that for a new manager. I think that was inputted to the state yesterday by their attorney or Salvatore, one or the other. That's what I was told by their attorney. They inputted that yesterday to the state, but in order to process their application, for a couple of reasons. One is we have this outstanding issue, but I'll get into that more afterwards. The main reason is at this point in time, that outstanding issue. But they also, when they wrote the check out, they didn't pay online to the Secretary of State. I mean, not to the ABCC. When they put the new manager in, and they redid the form just yesterday, they did pay. But the check that they wrote out to the city was made out to the Commonwealth of Mass. So they're going to bring in a new check to straighten that out. Then they'll have a license at least before the commission. Now we haven't. I haven't talked to them about specific dates when they want it. If they're pushing to have that license heard right away or not. Mr. Rodier, we find ourselves really, as far as the suspension issue, I think it's something that I would recommend to the commission, because we have no manager of record right now that's on site. Now there is a dispute going on. I have yet to receive anything from Mr. Rodier as far as paperwork. He waves at the last meeting. He had some in his hand, but I have not received it, nor has the commission, or the licensing department. Now, he also said he was going to an attorney. He mentioned a name. I'm not going to mention it until I hear from that attorney, but the name he mentioned has not contacted me or contacted the commission. So for tonight's purposes, I think the suspension is a good idea because of the fact we have no manager on site to oversee this this particular entity. The alcohol is all locked up in the room. Mr. Sarcosta said he was putting a special like keyed padlock on it. The last time we talked, which was he and I talked about a week ago. I talked to his attorney. She said it is in a locked room. That's been accomplished. So that's the situation as far as the suspension. To get beyond that, I think we would be speculating right now. The legal department, as far as the license commission is concerned, we're looking into what our next move is. But when the application is complete, obviously, then at some point we're going to have to make a decision. The attorney for Mr. Sarcosta's group did make a suggestion, and she said she made it to him also, of a way to try to resolve this. Whether or not Mr. Rodier is going to agree with that or not, I don't want to get into details because I'm not certain if they're going to agree to do that. Do what they said, which she's suggesting. I guess I could say what it is. She's suggesting some type of mediation between the parties. Because otherwise, thinking out loud here for a second, we could speculate for an hour about different scenarios where appeals, lawsuits, this, that. But at some point, the legal department is going to have to make a recommendation to you and you're going to have to think about it yourselves, what you want your next move to be. So that's where we are right now.
So what I think Mr. Rodier was waving around that we couldn't really see was the list of the officers from the Secretary of State's website before it was changed to the new slate.
Right.
I think that's
I
what
agree.
he's waving around. And so right now we have a incomplete application submitted. It's not complete yet. It's not quite complete.
It's very close to being completed. But
Okay.
it's not. To my knowledge, it's not complete yet. I didn't hear from anybody in the office that somebody brought a check in made out to the license commission.
Is that the last
possible? If that was brought in, then it would be ready.
Okay.
But I'd have to talk to his attorney. When do they want it on for? I mean, when do they want to mark it up for?
Okay. So we potentially, we'll have a complete application once we confirm that check has been submitted.
Right.
Okay. And
any advertisement, obviously they have to do, but yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And Mr. Rodier, I'm trying to put a pin in where he is. So they have an attorney, but you haven't heard from that attorney.
That's correct.
Okay. So, and this proposal for mediation has not been presented to Mr. Rodier, and
I don't know if it has or not.
okay.
I know his attorney mentioned it to the group she's representing, but I don't know if it actually was conveyed to him or not.
And we can't.
It doesn't sound like a bad idea.
We can't force them to do that, though.
No, you cannot.
So once we have a completed application, I'm trying to remember, like maybe 15 years back, we had an application and we were holding it for some reason. And the attorney, who I think was Tom Rook, said, if you don't hear this, it is deemed approved by the local board and will go to the ABCC. So there is a certain number of weeks, perhaps, that we can hold on to a submitted application before it is automatically approved by the local board. And that rule may have changed. Now, this was a long time ago, and automatically go to the ABCC. So
I think if you're going to have a disputed situation, frankly, even if if it winds up being a dispute, I mean, it could wind up for the ABCC one way or another. You know, at some point in the future, but
So
I
the-
think we have to take it one step at a time. And I mean, as far as the application being complete, not complete, when to mark it up for, I've talked to the new group's attorney that filed that application. She's not against the suspension. She's going to talk, you know, she's going to get back to me as far as when she wants it marked up. So she's not threatening to do anything. So it's automatically approved or anything
Right,
like that.
sure.
Yeah.
So I guess what I'm hearing is that the prudent thing to do tonight would be to suspend the license. The premises is secured, the alcohol is secured, so that hopefully nothing is going to happen there until the next step, whatever that is. So
Right.
the next step will be either remediation between these two parties, or we'll just hear this submitted application and let them appeal it to the ABCC for a final decision.
That could happen.
Okay. I think I'm
Any
done.
other questions? Any other questions?
How, yes, thank you. I'm just, how do I want to say this? How is it that this new group can just kind of bogart their way in and kick this old group out? Do we know?
Well,
Is
first
it like
of
a
all,
hostile takeover, or is
well,
it
if you
because
look at
there's
the-
no?
If you look at the new group, some of them are pretty well-known business people.
Mhm.
As far as the group is concerned, the application's in the office with all the names on it. So it looks like they had a meeting, legitimate meeting. Now whether they had a right to file it with the Secretary of State and have that meeting, that's a whole nother,
Yeah.
another issue. But that particular group went to the Secretary of State after they had their vote. Now there's some dispute there between Mr. Rodier and the new group as far as Mr. Rodier said, and I don't want to put words in his mouth, that somehow they got his pin. I think he said that at the last
Yeah, he
meeting.
said that his last meeting, right?
The group is saying, the new group is saying that when they called the Secretary of State, they basically said, we have a new vote here. We have some new officers. We want to follow this. And the way I understood it, now, you know, you hear things differently sometimes, but the way I understood it was, they said, do you have the pin? No. Okay, here's the pin.
Oh, okay.
That's my understanding. Now, I could be
Hey.
wrong
Okay.
because sometimes,
Secure.
you know, you hear things differently.
Yep.
People explain things, but that was my understanding.
Okay.
Anthony, when you say vote.
Yeah.
Who voted? Is it just
The
the
new, well, it's like they got, first of all, Mr. Rodier basically has said that he only had 5 members left in his group
yes,
because most of them went to the Dante Club in West Springfield, I think he said.
yes.
Right.
I think he said that last time. So my understanding is that from having conversations with Mr. Sakasta and his attorney, is that one of those members of Mr. Rodier's group may have been at the new meeting. So, but
Ooh.
what it basically was a group of people got together, said, we are members. We want to form a new board.
Mm.
And they were able to certify as members. And then they all voted to create new officers in a
Mhm.
new board. So I think that's the way it was done.
Interesting.
You know, it all depends. I'm looking at the paperwork. I will say it's a lot of paperwork. A lot of work was done putting it together. And I know that Judy Cross said I think she reviewed it. I've talked to her several times about it because I was trying to get more and more information. And it sounds like, you know, from her, as far as what she's explaining, and Mr. Sarkozy, she believes it was done in a legal way. Now, there's, you know, things are already subject to dispute, and Mr. Rodier certainly has a couple different times disputed it. But the question is, and I'm gonna be honest with you, I've been doing liquor licenses since I've been a young attorney. My family's been in the liquor business for years. My father owned a lot of stores, my family owned restaurants. I have never seen a situation like this in my entire career.
Mhm.
And no one else that I know has ever seen a situation like this. So it is a kind of a novel situation. I can tell you that. So I think we have to be careful to make sure that we walk that line and just do things legally step by step. And that's why I'm not rushing to tell you what our next step is. If they get that, if that check came in yesterday, and then we're going to have to talk in the office with the deputy director about, do we go forward with this application? And then obviously Mr. Roeder would have a right to appeal. If for some reason the commission passed it, he would have a right to appeal it to the ABCC. But, or they could bring some other kind of I mean, I don't want to go far fetched here, but there's a lot of different types of legal actions you could bring if in fact this was not done properly. But as far as what I've seen so far, it looks like it has been. But of course, I don't know what Mr. Roeder knows. He has said a lot of different things that I can't, I can't verify.
Mhm.
So I only can go by what we have in front of us. He certainly has a right to voice his opinion, and he has. So, but we're going to have to decide, the legal department, what to recommend to you, and then you're going to have to decide how you want to handle it. So maybe it's a good start to you thinking about it, because the application is almost, as of last that I checked yesterday, it was almost complete. It was waiting for, and I was going by his attorney. I don't think we had received the query request and the pay and where they showed the payment that was submitted to the ABCC. I don't think we had that as of yesterday. My understanding is that has to be produced to us also. That showing that the payment was made for the query request and the new manager. And then we have to have the check to the city so we can process, has to be made out to the city of Springfield. The check that I saw was Commonwealth of Massachusetts. I think they thought they had to file the package with us and we would file with the ABCC, but they now understand what they had to do. They supposedly rectified it. We're just waiting for copies of what they did yesterday and a check.
Okay.
Any other questions?
I'm just trying to understand our clear involvement in this until they finish their squabble of who is the board or whatever they call it, and let them take it up to the court system and let them dispute that. And when the final decision comes out, I think then that should be coming in front of us and we make that decision from that, because tell me, sir.
Go ahead. I'm sorry. No, I was just going to say that I agree with you that would be an ideal situation if they both agree. We're both got to have lawyers. We're going to court. We're going to argue this out and then come back. The problem is we have an application. If that application is complete, sitting in front of it, I think we have to act expeditiously on the application. You can't just let an application, if it's fully, together and it has no needs, I don't think you can just let it sit there. Now you could, I think at this point, both sides agreed to the suspension. At least that's what I was told by Mr. Roeder and Mr. Sarcosta and his attorney. But whether or not you process the application, that's what we're going to be looking into the next few days and next week before your next meeting. Because I talked to Mr. Sarcosta's attorney and basically told her, when you get everything together, then you're going to have to decide how fast you want this to be acted on. And she basically said that she recommended that they consider mediation. But of course, in order to have mediation, both sides have to agree to it.
Right.
And pay for it.
my thing is, we go forward, whoever the applications, and then next you know, there's a big dispute or who is really in, I don't wanna say in charge or who's.
Oh, yeah, it's in control.
Right, in
Liquor license.
control, and now we voted on something that hasn't really been decided yet on who's in control of the place.
I agree. And that was my first thought until I knew that they had started to rectify things in the application. And I think we have to be careful. So I'm going to be doing some research in the next few days, but I'm confident by talking to the new group's attorney that they're not rushing into this to try to get the license approved like today. Now they may want it on, if not our next meeting, the meeting after that. They could push to try to get it on the agenda. Then we'd have to make a decision. Do we think it's a good application or not? I mean, are we going to make the decision that there was a takeover? I don't know if we have enough information to make that decision, to be honest with you.
Correct.
Right, so I'm just wondering, the Smith are going for hostile takeover or whatever, and we're making a decision, and next, wait, the Smith are not in charge, this entity is in charge, you guys shouldn't have never voted on it because it hasn't been determined who's in control.
Yeah.
And so it looks like we go back to a square one type to, or we have to.
That's one of, I can tell you this, that was my first thought. And that is certainly one of our options. But we don't want to wind up in a situation where not only are we waiting for them to, let's say they sue each other and they get into a litigation. And this really isn't, does the commission want to get sued for not acting on the application? So we have to look at that too. I'm basically saying these things publicly because they're all on the table. We have to research all this. I don't have answers for you yet on that. I'm only going by what one attorney told me. I believe her what she said. I have not heard from Mr. Rodier's attorney, so I don't know what his next move is going to be, if any, or he may wait for a decision to come down and then take it up on appeal. He could do So we don't know yet, but that's why this was only on for a suspension tonight. You could talk about the ramifications as part of the suspension, but what our decision is going to be forward, I don't think it can be made right now tonight. Other than the suspension, and I think it should be suspended until it's put on another agenda or until the ABCC approves the new group and the new manager. So that's all I can say. I can't give you an answer yet where we're going because it's a very novel situation, and I think we have to take it one step at a time, and I think we have to research it further. So I'm going to be talking to Attorney Days about this. We've had several conversations so far, and I think we're going to have more, and maybe also do some research.
Okay.
But I understand I understand what everybody said. Nobody said anything wrong. It's just there's a possibility of scenarios here.
Right.
Okay. Any other questions? No.
No,
Is there a motion?
I will make a motion to suspend the all alcohol liquor license for Our Lady of Mount Carmel Society Incorporated, DBA Our Lady of Mount Carmel Society, located at 1315 Winthrop Street. Frank P. Magagnoli, manager of record, because he is exceptionally ill and not on site functioning as the manager. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Commissioner Singleton,
Yes.
Commissioner D'Angelo Antonio,
Yes.
Commissioner Ramirez,
Yes.
Commissioner Espinosa, yes. Okay, well, thank
And we'll
you.
just make a note that it's suspended until the ABCC approves. Approves either. Well, it's hard to word it, but I would say till they give final approval to the license, if in fact we process that application.
Do you want me to amend the motion?
Yeah, I think that'd be a good idea.
Okay, I amend the motion that the suspension be in effect until assuming this board approves the pending transfer and it is sent to the ABCC and approved by them or sent back to us for review. How's that?
That's fine.
Okay. Do I hear a second?
There's second to the amendment.
Second.
Okay, Commissioner Singleton,
Yes.
Commissioner D'Angelo Antonio,
Yes.
Commissioner Ramirez,
Yes.
Commissioner Espinosa, yes. Okay, I think that is all for tonight. I thank everyone for making it today. I hope you all have a good evening.
You too.
You too. See you next
Well,
week.
You gotta make a
Okay.
motion to adjourn.
Yes.
I make a motion to adjourn at 6:05.
Second.
Commissioner, I was gonna say Kate, Commissioner Singleton,
Yes.
Commissioner D'Angelo Antonio,
Yes.
Commissioner Ramirez,
Yes.
Commissioner Espinosa, yes. Again, thank you and good night.